start a new topic, that is thin cylinders and spherical shells. In this topic, the outline will be first we'll get ourselves introduced to what is meant by a cylinder or a shell, then what are the stresses which are induced in cylinders and shells, and how we can strengthen. So we will have our discussion, a detailed discussion on the thin cylinder and spherical shells. Now, pressure vessel, as you might be aware, it is a very important equipment or element used in the process industry. So pressure vessels normally, as the name suggests, is a vessel which carries pressure. So it may be carrying a gas, it may be carrying a liquid, it may be carrying a stream. So mostly in the process industry, we come across. So cylinders, gas cylinders, they are very good examples. Then the digesters in the sugar industry or in the process industry, maybe our chemical industry. Okay, so there we use we come across. So it is an important element. So normally two type of pressure vessels are common in practice. One is a cylindrical pressure vessel and another is a spherical pressure vessel. So it is used for liquid storage tanks, containers, water pipes, boilers, submarine hulls, okay, and certain airplane components are the common examples of thin-walled cylinders. So this is how a cylindrical pressure vessel look like. It is a cylinder, so it has been cut from the center. So this P pressure it is carrying, the inner diameter is D. So two type of stresses are generated. One is along the longitudinal direction along the length, that is sigma L, and another is along the circumferences, that is sigma H. So T is the thickness of this cylindrical thin cylinder. So this T is important. So we will know if T is more, then they fall under the category of thick cylinder, otherwise thin cylinder. But it is having a limitation condition, so that we will discuss in the coming slides. Then the second classification is a spherical shell. So it is a half portion of a sphere. So sphere, it is just like a ball, football. If you cut it from the center, so this section will look like this. So the internal diameter is D, and the thickness of the shell is T, and it is also having stress element, if we say. So it is having longitude in the longitudinal direction as well as in the circumferential direction. So only one kind of stress is there, that is the Hooft stress. Now, thin cylinder. A thin cylinder is subjected to a difference of hydrostatic pressure P between the inner surface and the outer surface. The radial plane remains radial and the wall thickness does not change during the internal pressure. So these are the assumptions. The internal pressure acting on the wall causes a local compressive stress, which is equal to the pressure, but its value is negligible as compared to other stresses. Okay, so this we have seen. This pressure will cause the compressive stress. Okay, the state of the stress of an element of a thin walled pressure is considered as biaxial one. So this we have seen. This is the state of stress we have represented. In one direction, along the length is the longitudinal stress. Along the circumferential direction, it is the Hooft stress. Okay. Now, further in this analysis of thin wall cylinder, the weight of the fluid is considered negligible. The thickness T is very much smaller than the internal radius Ri and the ratio this T. So if this Ri is nothing but it is d by 2. So it will become 2t upon d. So if you take this ratio, and it should be less than 0.1, so it is less than 20. So if it is d by t is more than 20, then this is thick cylinder or thick pressure vessel. Otherwise, it is the thin cylinder. So this is a demarcation between the thick cylinder and the thin cylinder. Obviously, the thick cylinders are made up of the sheet or the plate, which is more thicker. Okay, so we design this according to the requirement of the pressure, but this is a limiting condition which differentiate between the thick cylinder and the thin cylinder. Now we'll consider the many situations. The first situation is that thin cylinders are subjected to the internal pressure. So in order to analyze a thin wall cylinder, following assumptions are made: that there are no shear stress acting in the wall. So we have seen only the two stresses, normal stresses, that is sigma L and sigma H, they are acting. The longitudinal and the hoop stress do not vary through the wall. So this hoop stress is also sometimes known as sigma C or the circumferential stress. The radial stress, which acts normal to the chord plane of the isolated element, are very small as compared to the two stresses. That's why they are not considered. The state of stress of an element of a thin walled pressure vessel is considered to be biaxial, although the internal pressure acting normal to the wall causes a local compressive stress which is equal to the internal pressure. Actually, a state of triaxial stress exists on the inside of a vessel. However, for the thin walled pressure vessel, the third stress is much smaller than the other two stresses, that is sigma H and sigma L. For this reason, it is neglected. Now, as we know, we have just seen, so there are three types of stresses. One is the circumferential or the hoop stress, another is the radial stress, and third one is the longitudinal stress. But this radial stress is very small. Okay, so we neglect this, and we consider only these two stresses are acting in the thin walled cylinder. When we will be dealing the thick cylinder, we have to consider all these three stresses. Now these stresses, as they are denoted by sigma H, that is for hoop, or sigma C, that is for the circumferential stresses, but they are same. Sigma H is equal to sigma C. The stresses which is set up in the existing resisting bursting effect of the applied pressure. So what will happen when you apply the pressure inside the cylinder? It will try to burst the cylinder. If the pressure is more and the cylinder material is not able to sustain that pressure, so it will try to tear it off, and or it will burst. So, and it can almost conveniently hit it. So that means there a condition of equilibrium will exist. That means the inside pressure should be less than the resisting effect of the bursting cylinder. So this we'll see mathematically. So if you see, this is a cylinder which is of length L, and this is a element, stress element we have considered. So along the length there is a longitudinal stress, along the circumference there is a hoop stress. P is the internal pressure which is acting, T is the thickness. So this you see sigma H is acting along the thickness. If you take the section at the center. So these are the parameters we have taken. P is the internal pressure, D is the inside diameter, L is the length, and T is the thickness of the wall. So now the total force on one half of the cylinder due to the internal pressure. So pressure is P, which is stress into the projected area. So stress into area will give you the force. Okay. So this is P D into L. So D is the thickness and L. So the projected area, if you see, so this L and into D, this is the D. Okay. The thickness will be when you open it up, D. So this is a projected area which will be taken. So total resistance force owing to the pressure sigma H is set up. So on the two sides, So it is 2 times sigma h into L into T. Okay. So this 2 times in equilibrium, these two will be equal because the resisting force because of the material of the cylinder with which we take, that is sigma h. So 2 times sigma h L into T should be equal to P times D into L. So if you equate this, L will be cancelled. So sigma h will be giving you P into D upon 2T. So this is a very important uh, very important relation we get. So sigma h is directly proportional to P. So that means more the pressure, more strong the cylinder should be. Okay. And if T is more, then this will be less. So that is obvious. The thick cylinder will be more stronger. Okay. So this is how we derive the relation for the hoop stress. Now, for the longitudinal stress, that is sigma L, this stress is denoted by sigma L and it is along the length. You can see here. So this is a cylinder which is enclosed by the two plates on the both sides, and P the internal pressure which is acting. So this cylinder will try to, be brusted. So this is a D is the diameter, internal diameter. So consider now this figure. So this we have discussed. The wall of the cylinder have a longitudinal stress as well as the circumferential stress. This we have seen. So how to find the relation for sigma L? So if you see this cross section, so D is the diameter, T is the thickness, sigma L is acting on this area, this thickness. Okay. So this is the area where the resisting these forces. Obviously this area will be pi into D into T. So pi D into T will be the area. Pi into D will be circumference. Okay. So that will make 1 h into T. So the consider this free body diagram, okay, which we have taken. So under the equilibrium, you see, first we see the total pressure, total force on the end of the cylinder will be pressure into area. So pressure pi by 4 into D square, okay, and that is the cross-sectional area of the cylinder, and the area of the metal resisting this force will pi into D into T. So under the equilibrium, this will become the force sigma L into pi into D into T, and this is also the force, okay, due to the internal pressure. So when you equate them, dd will cancel and pi will also cancel. So sigma L will be PD upon 2T. So it is, you see that 2 times if you take, so there exists a relation sigma L is equal to PD upon 2T and sigma H is equal to PD upon 2T. So if you multiply with 2 this time, so it will give 2 times PD upon 4T. So 2 will go. So it will be PD upon 2T. So that means sigma H is equal to 2 times the sigma L. Okay. Now, because of this internal pressure, there will be change in dimension. You can understand this when we put up a pressure inside the cylinder. So it will try to, change the dimension in the circumferential direction as well as in the longitudinal direction. So if you take this, element of the stress, so this is a, Hooke's direction and this is the longitudinal direction. So the Poisson ratio, because of the Poisson ratio, there will be lateral strain and there will be the longitudinal strain. So the change of the length of the cylinder can be determined from the longitudinal strain. So since whenever the cylinder will elongate in the axial direction or the longitudinal direction, so there will be decrease in the diameter, isn't it? The later strain we can find out by this relation. Okay, so this minus sign shows that it goes under decreasing. Now let E be the modulus of elasticity for the material which we are going to take for the cylinder. So first of all, we will calculate what is the change in length. So change in length of the cylinder may be determined from the longitudinal strain. So neglecting the radial strain, the longitudinal strain is 1 upon E, that is sigma L minus nu times sigma H. So this relation, you know, there will be net strain because the two stresses are there. So net strain in the longitudinal direction will be this. Now change in length will be the longitudinal strain into original length, because longitudinal, by the definition of longitudinal strain, the change in length upon original length will be the longitudinal strain. So this you multiplied with L, this longitudinal strain multiplied with this L. So this will give you a relationship. If you put the value of sigma L and sigma H, so you will get this relation, that is PD upon 4TE 1 minus 2 nu into L, where E is the modulus of velocity, T is the thickness of the cylinder, D is the internal dia, and nu or mu is the Poisson ratio, and L is the length of the cylinder. So now this way we have calculated the change in length. Similarly, because of the change in length, the diameter is going to change. So in order to calculate the change in diameter, we have to consider the diametral strain, that is change in diameter upon the original diameter. So now the change in diameter may be found by considering the circumferential change, which is due to the circumferential strain or circumferential stress. The stress acting around the circumference is a Hooft stress, which give rise to the circumferential strain. So this eta h we denote for circumferential strain. So therefore the change in circumference will be the strain into the original circumference. So eta h is the strain and original circumference will be pi into d. Okay. So net circumferential strain circumference nu will be the original one plus change. So pi d plus pi d into eta h. So if you take pi d as common, so it will come this. But this relation gives you the circumference for which the diameter is d into 1 plus eta h. So it is pi into this will give the circumference, new circumference. So therefore new diameter is this. Change in diameter will be the new diameter minus the original diameter. So it will give you d into eta h. So diametral strain will be equal to d eta h upon d. So it is eta h. So diametral strain, similarly we can write the net strain or the change in diameter because of this will be equal to d into eta h. So d upon eta h, we will put the value of sigma h and the sigma L. So it will come this relation. So now because of there is a change in length, there is a change in diameter. So that means we can find the new volume. So change in internal volume is equal to change in volume is the volumetric strain into the original strain. There are two methods. First is that either we calculate the initial volume and then we calculate the new volume with the increased diameter, and then we subtract that and we get the change in internal volume. Or we can do like this, that we can make use of the volumetric strain, that is change in volume is equal to volumetric strain into the original volume. So volumetric strain is the sum of the three mutual perpendicular strain. So that is sigma L into 2 times the eta d. Okay. So this we can this we have calculated. This also we have calculated. So you put the value of both these and you add this and you put the values of sigma L and sigma H in this relation. So you will get this change in internal volume by relation P into D upon 4 TE 5 minus 4 eta into V, there where V is the original volume. Okay. Now we can also calculate the stresses which are generated when a thin cylinder or a thin ring is rotating. Okay. So let us consider this figure. This is a figure showing the section of a rotating ring or a thin cylinder. Thin cylinder means its thickness is very small. So it is rotating at an angular speed of omega, and the internal radius is r, and P is the pressure. Okay, and F is the centrifugal force which it will be experiencing. So consider a thin ring or the cylinder as shown. It is subjected to a radial pressure P caused by the centrifugal effect of its own mass when rotating at omega rpm. So the centrifugal effect of a unit length of the circumference is P is equal to m into omega square r. Okay, this is by the definition of the centrifugal stress. Thus, considering the equilibrium of the half of the ring, so the this will be the bursting force. So it is 2F is equal to P into 2R. So F is equal to PR. 2 will cancel. So this cylinder F is equal to PR is nothing but m omega square r. Okay, so we have because it is thin, so we can take the centrifugal effect to be taken as constant along the wall thickness. So tension transmitted through the complete circumference and therefore the restricted by the cross-sectional area. So Hooft stress in this case will be the force upon area. So you can put this value of force divided by area. So now this mass upon area, it is a density for a unit length or unit volume. So that mass area into L, if L is 1, so this mass unit volume, it will give you the density. So you can write this as Hooft stress is equal to rho into omega square into r square, where rho is the density of the material which we are going to use. Now this was for the case of the cylinder. Now let us analyze the thin spherical shell. So shell, as I told, spherical shell is a in the form of the sphere, just like a football or a ball. So if you cut it from the center, so it will give you the Hooft stress, and there will be Hooft stress all along the length and along the circumference also. So this is a half portion of the thin sphere which is subjected to a internal pressure showing the uniform Hooft stress acting on the element. So it is because of the symmetry of the sphere that we will consider the stresses which will be due to the internal pressure, and they will be mutually perpendicular along the circumferential direction and the longitudinal direction. So as with the thin cylinder having the thickness of diameter ratio less than 120, or you can say d by t ratio is more than 20, the radial stress is assumed to be negligible in comparison with the value of the Hooft stresses which are set up. The stress system is therefore one of the equal biaxial Hooft stress. So we have seen this here as a case of the biaxial stress. So this is a case of the biaxial stress. So consider the equilibrium of the half of the force on the half sphere due to the internal pressure is pressure into the projected area. So P, and this is the pi d square by 4. So resisting force will be sigma h into pi dt. So when we equate them, so you see pi will be cancelled, 1d will be cancelled. So Hooft stress in this case is equal to Pd upon 40. Okay, and this is again equal to the this is again equal to the just a minute. I was running short of battery. So this is equal to sigma h is equal to Pd upon 40. So now the way we have calculated the strain effect in the case of the cylinder, similarly for the case of the sphere also we can calculate. So change in internal volume, we'll say first we'll analyze what will be the change in the internal volume of the cylinder. So till now we have calculated the change which was due to the pressure, and it was the dimensional change. So for the cylinder, change in volume is the original volume into the this. So volumetric strain is this. So this we have calculated 3 PD 4T upon this. So this is a change in the internal volume. But in case of the vessel which are subjected to the fluid pressure, and this pressure is appreciable. So if a fluid is used as a pressurization medium, fluid itself will change in the volume as the pressure is increased, and this must be taken into account when the calculating the amount of the fluid which must be pumped into the cylinder in order to raise the pressure by a specified amount. Okay, so if you see this, so we'll take into account the bulk stress or the bulk modulus. We know the volumetric stress upon the volumetric strain. So in this case, volumetric strain is equal to change in volume upon the original volume. So bulk stress we have as P. So this bulk modulus will be the ratio of the bulk volumetric stress upon the volumetric strain. So it will give you bulk volumetric stress upon the volumetric strain. So it will give you this thing. So this VV will go, and we can have this the change in volume, that is delta V. Delta V is equal to PV upon K. Okay. Now this extra fluid which is required to raise the pressure must therefore take up this volume together. So this is the original change in volume, and this is due to the change in the due to the pressurized fluid which we have introduced. So for the sphere also you will add this when the extra fluid is required. Okay. Now conventionally we have a cylinder which is of this shape, that there is a longitudinal portion which is a cylinder, and at the two hemispheres are there, so they form as a hemispherical end, and this vessel is closed. Okay, you must have seen when we have gas also tankers. So this shape normally we see. So we take a thickness for the shell as TS, and we take a thickness at the thin cylinder as TC, and it is subjected to a pressure P, and D is the diameter, inside diameter. Okay. So let us see how the dimensional changes will occur in such a case. So consider a figure, vessel shown in the figure. So this wall thickness I have explained to you. So in order to analyze this, you have to take these 2-3 assumptions: that there are no shear stress acting in the wall, longitudinal and the Hooft stress do not vary along the wall, radial stress which acts normal to the curved plane of the isolated elements are small as compared to the other two stresses. The state of the stress of an element is thin. Okay, so these three things, I think this has we have come to a wrong slide. Just a minute. We were here. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I did not attach the power plug, so there was a problem. Okay, so we'll start from here. So the for cylindrical portion, we know now this will be the Hooft stress or the circumferential stress, and this will be the longitudinal stress. So the Hooft or circumferential strain will be this net. Okay. Now for the hemispherical end, so we have calculated PD is equal to 4-2T upon E, 1 minus mu. So from the above figure, if you see, this is a change position and this is a chain position. So that means this thickness, more thickness will be required at the cylindrical portion and the less thickness will be required. So this we can see here. So incompatibility of the deformation causes the local bending and the shearing stress in the neighborhood of the joint. So what happens at this, because these are joint, so there will be incompatibility of the stress and some stress will be developed here, shear stress. So that's why the chances are
Yes,
there from
Tisaraj.
which will fail from here. Okay, so in order to this, we have to find out what should be the ratio of these two thicknesses. So since there must be a physical continuity between the ends and the cylindrical portion, for this reason a properly curved end must be used for the pressure vessel. So thus equating the two strain. So one strain is this, another strain is this. So if you compare this, so T1 upon T2 or T2 upon T1 will give you, other terms will be cancelled because they are made up of the same material. So E is same, mu is same, D is also same because the same diameter you have taken. So we are left with this. T2 upon T1 is equal to 1 minus mu upon 2 minus mu. Now this mu is normally taken as 0.3 for the steel work which we. So if you put this value, it will be 0.7 upon 1.7. So if you reverse this ratio, then T1 upon T2 will give you 2.4 into T2. That means the thickness of the cylinder wall must be approximately 2.4 times, okay, that of the hemisphere oil. So that there is the equilibrium and this does not fail from the joint. So this is an important relation you have to remember. Okay. Now we can join this either with the welding or with the riveting. So when we use riveting, then we will have a longitudinal joint. This is as a longitudinal joint, and this side we will be having the circumferential joint. So earlier when the boiler used to be there, welding was not there. So at that time, we use the boiler for boilers and pressure vessels. We make use of the riveting, and riveting process was also quite efficient. It was having a leakage efficiency very good, up to 85%. Okay, but welding gives you 100%. So efficiency of this joint was less, but because of the non-availability of the welding process in abundance, and this process was used. So that means the stress which we are going to use, it will not be the actual stress. So we have to take into account the joint efficiency. So in the case of the longitudinal and the circumferential stresses, we apply this factor as eta L or eta C. This is the efficiency of the longitudinal joint, and this is the efficiency of the circumferential joint. Okay. Now, just a minute. This again it has. Yeah. So you see, we have seen there is a factor T in the both the formula. So if we are going to increase T, so we are going to decrease the stresses. But how long we can increase the thickness of the tube or the shell or the thin cylinder? So that means there is a limitation on the material. So we have to strengthen this cylinder by some other way also. So what we do, we make use of the wire bending for making this thin cylinder strong enough to withstand the internal pressure. So this is a cross section of the thin cylinder. You can see these are the internal diameter of the cylinder, and on top of it, and W is the this D is the diameter of the wire which we are going to wound on this length. circumferentially, and this TW is the thickness, okay, which it will be made, and this will be the D is the diameter of the wire which we are going to use. So this way we can make the cylinder strong. So we will analyze what will be the effect on the stresses. So a tube can be strengthened against the internal pressure by winding. It is with the wire under tension and putting the tube wall in compression. So when we wind it, so naturally this tube will be compressed, okay, and there will be tension in the wire. As the pressure is applied, the resultant hoop stress produced is much less as it would have been in the absence of wire. The maximum stress will be in the wire, which is made up of high tensile material. So we can, instead of making the total cylinder of a high strength material, we can make use of this high strength material wire, which will be much economical to use.
Release.
So analysis of the wire wound cylinder is made on the assumption that one layer of wire of diameter D is closely wound on the tube with an initial tension T. So this here you can see this is a cylinder, and this is a thickness TW which is of the wire, and this T is the thickness of the plate, and this is the tension in the wire outside, and this is a compression in the tube. So this is a stress diagram for free body diagram for this wire wound cylinder. So initial tensile stress is in the wire will be force upon the area, so it will be 4T upon pi d square. So replace the wire by a wire of rectangular cross section. If the wire is of rectangular cross section of thickness TW and the diameter D and the width D, okay. If this wire is not circular, if it is rectangular, then in that case this TW into T will be the area, or TW will be pi D upon 4, okay. Now the cylinder is assumed to be wound with a rectangular wire of thickness D, width D and the thickness T. For unit axial length of the cylinder, the important stress in the cylinder can be found by equating the compressive circumferential force in the cylinder to the tensile force. Okay, so this T into 1, because length we have taken into 1, so area is this. So TW into 1, it will sigma T. So this way we can find this is the stress tensile force. Okay. Now the stress due to the, if the pressure is also there inside, it is with the pressure. So on applying the internal pressure T, let the thickness, let the stress will be sigma prime, you can say, tensile, which is hoop in the cylinder, and the tensile in the wire due to the pressure only. Okay, so it is sigma W prime. So it is missing here. So in equilibrium, this is 2T into 1 into this plus this stress into the area, stress into the area. So this gives the equation. So equating this, so you will get this, because we will assume that the circumferential strain of a wire will be equal to the strain in the cylinder. Okay, this is a case of a composite structure which we have studied in chapter 1. So that means the final stresses are calculated by taking the algebraic sum of the initial stress and the stress due to the fluid pressure. So final stress will be equal to sigma prime minus sigma. Okay, and because sigma is compressive, so algebraic sum will be this, and in the wire it is tensile, so it is sigma W prime and sigma. Okay, so this way you can calculate. So we can solve some numerical also. So I'll give you a sheet on this thin cylinder and thin spherical shell. So this was all which I wanted to talk on this chapter. So is there any question you can ask me? So I stop my presentation here. So in the discussion session, we can ask the questions. So thank you so much for your patience.